My mother uninvited me from Christmas dinner in a text message that arrived while the casserole was still warm in my hands. Not a phone call, not even the courage of her own voice. Just 12 words on my screen that managed to split open every scar I had spent 2 years pretending had healed. Don't come tonight. Vanessa will be there. We don't want drama. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 34 years old that Christmas morning, living in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, working as a closing coordinator for a real estate title company. My job was to catch mistakes before people signed away houses, money, and futures they did not fully understand. I knew how to read deeds, tax statements, probate filings, transfer documents, and all the quiet little lines people ignore until those lines destroy them. But that morning, none of that mattered. I was standing in my kitchen, wearing jeans, wool socks, and the old red sweater my grandmother used to tease me about, staring at my mother's message, while the green bean casserole steamed on the counter. I had made it because my mother asked me to. I had bought the good mushrooms, fried the onions fresh, and used Grandma Eleanor's baking dish, the blue ceramic one with the chipped handle. Vanessa was my ex-husband's new wife. Before that, she had been his coworker. Before that, she had been the woman whose name appeared too often on his phone while I was sleeping 3 hours a night beside my dying grandmother's hospital bed. Ryan told me she was just someone who understood him. My mother later called her a calming presence. I called her what she was only once. After that, everyone acted like my honesty was the real sin. I read the text 3 times because pain has a strange way of making you check for mercy that is not there. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe she meant dinner would be awkward, and she wanted to talk first. Maybe she was warning me Ryan had brought Vanessa without telling anyone. But then, a second message came through before I could answer. You can still drop off the casserole if you already made it. Everyone loves that dish. That was my mother. Margaret Bennett could cut you out of the family photograph and still ask you to hold the camera. She could tell you not to come inside and still expect you to bring food to the porch. She had spent my whole life dressing cruelty in practical language, as if the right tone could make any wound respectable. She never screamed when a whisper could do more damage. I set the phone down beside the casserole and pressed both palms against the counter. The kitchen was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint tick of the oven cooling behind me. I did not cry. I wish I could say that was strength, but it was not. Sometimes you do not cry because your body has learned there is no one coming when you do. Christmas dinner was always held at Grandma Eleanor's house on Linden Street. It was a white 2-story home, with green shutters, a sagging porch, and a maple tree in the front yard that had cracked the sidewalk years before anyone admitted it needed trimming. That house was the closest thing I had to a safe place growing up. My parents fought there less. My mother smiled there more. My grandmother always kept a seat for me beside her even when everyone else forgot. After Grandma got sick, I became the person who stayed. My mother said she was too anxious around medical things. My brother Travis had 2 kids and couldn't handle the stress. Ryan said he supported me, but support looked a lot like him, coming home late and sighing when I was too tired to make dinner. So I handled the medication, charts the insurance, calls the groceries, the roof leak, the property taxes, and the nights when Grandma woke up, confused, and called for a husband who had been dead for 16 years. Margaret liked to tell people that caregiving had brought the family closer. It had not. It had revealed us. When Grandma died, the house became something everyone wanted to claim without remembering who had kept it standing. My mother started saying Mom left things simple, but she never showed me documents. She said probate was just a formality. She said I was grieving and should not burden myself with paperwork. At the time, I was also finalizing my divorce from Ryan, so I let her handle it because I was exhausted enough to believe exhaustion was the same thing as trust. I learned later that people do their best work when you are too tired to watch them. The first Christmas after the divorce, my mother invited Ryan because he had been part of the family for 8 years. I arrived and found him laughing in the living room with my uncle drinking the bourbon my grandfather used to keep in the cabinet. Vanessa was not there yet, but her name floated through the room like perfume. Everyone knew. Nobody said it. My mother hugged me at the door and whispered, "Please don't make this about you." That became the rule. Nothing was ever about me, even when it happened to me. The second Christmas, Vanessa came with Ryan. She wore cream, cashmere, and brought a poinsettia wrapped in gold foil, as if she were visiting a nursing home instead of stepping into the house where my grandmother had once held my face and told me I was not hard to love. Vanessa hugged my mother too long, touched Ryan's arm too often, and said things like, "I just hope Claire knows there's no bad blood." I remember looking around the room waiting for someone to object to that sentence. No one did. My mother sat me near the end of the table beside the folding chairs while Vanessa sat 2 seats down from Margaret. Ryan carved the ham because he always did it so nicely. When I reached for the rolls, my Aunt Linda asked whether I was seeing anyone yet, and Travis laughed like that was brave of her. I remember Grandma's chair at the head of the table empty but still present, and how Vanessa kept glancing at it like she was trying to measure how soon she could belong there. After dinner, my mother pulled me into the pantry and said, "Christmas is about forgiveness, Claire." I asked her whether Christmas was also about consequences. Her face hardened. "You lost your marriage because you couldn't let things go. Don't lose your family the same way." That sentence stayed with me longer than Ryan's betrayal did. Maybe because Ryan had chosen another woman, but my mother had chosen the story that made me smaller. He had cheated, she had edited. And somehow, by the time the family finished discussing it, I had become the difficult one, the bitter one, the woman who needed to mature gracefully so everyone else could keep enjoying dinner. I thought about all of that while the casserole sat on my counter, still warm, still wanted, even if I was not. I could have thrown it away. I could have driven it to a shelter. I could have left it in the snow and sent my mother a picture. Instead, I covered it with foil, slid it into a cardboard carrier, and put on my coat. Not because she deserved it. Because I wanted to see the house. The drive to Linden Street took 17 minutes. Cedar Rapids looked like a Christmas card that had been left too long in a drawer, all gray sky, dirty snow, and porch lights glowing before sunset. I passed the church where Ryan and I had married, then the bakery where Grandma used to buy cinnamon twists on Saturdays. Every ordinary landmark felt like a witness. Every red light gave me too much time to think. My phone buzzed twice on the passenger seat. I did not look down. When I turned onto Linden, the house was lit from every window. Cars lined the curb and spilled into the driveway. My mother's silver Buick was there, Travis's SUV, Aunt Linda's Subaru, Ryan's black truck, and beside it a white Lexus with a red bow tied to the front grille because Vanessa had always understood how to make an entrance look innocent. I parked across the street under the maple tree and sat there with the casserole in my lap. Through the front window I could see the dining room, chandelier, the garland over the archway, and people moving in warm yellow light. It looked like family from a distance. That was the cruelest part. From the outside, betrayal can look almost holy if there are enough candles. My mother opened the front door before I knocked. She must have been watching for me. She wore a dark green dress and pearl earrings, her hair sprayed into the same soft shape she had worn for every holiday photograph since 1998. Her eyes flicked to the casserole first, then to my face, then back to the casserole. "Thank you," she said, reaching for it. I held it a second longer than necessary. "Merry Christmas, Mom." She glanced over her shoulder, lowering her voice. "Claire, please. Not tonight." I didn't say anything. You know what I mean. I did know. She meant my face, my presence, my history. The fact that I had once been Ryan's wife and was now inconvenient evidence that Vanessa's love story had begun in someone else's wreckage. My mother did not want drama. She wanted a clean table with no visible stains. From inside, someone laughed. Then I heard Vanessa's voice, light and sweet, saying, "Margaret, do you need help?" My mother's fingers tightened around the casserole carrier. "You should go." I looked past her into the living room. Ryan stood near the fireplace with a drink in his hand, wearing the navy sweater I had bought him during our last married Christmas. Vanessa was beside him, one hand resting on his lower back. She looked toward the door and gave me a soft, pitying smile, the kind people give when they have already won and want credit for not gloating. Then I saw the chair. Grandma Eleanor's chair had been moved from the head of the dining table to the living room corner after she died. Nobody sat in it the first year. Nobody dared. But that night Vanessa was sitting in it, her cream skirt draped over the cushion Grandma had sewn herself, and a glass of wine rested on the little side table where Grandma used to keep her Bible and peppermint tin. Something in me went very still. My mother followed my gaze and immediately stepped into the doorway to block the view. "It's just a chair, Claire." No, it was not. But I had already learned that explaining sacred things to people who profit from disrespect only teaches them where to hit next. I let go of the casserole. My mother took it relieved, as if the difficult part was over. "I'll call you tomorrow." "You won't," I said. Her mouth opened, but I turned before she could shape another sentence into a blade. I walked down the porch steps slowly, because the wood was slick with frost, and because I refused to give anyone behind that window the satisfaction of seeing me stumble. I reached my car, opened the door, and set one hand on the roof to steady myself. That was when I saw the envelope. It was wedged halfway inside the black mailbox at the edge of the porch, bent slightly from the cold. A plain brown envelope, legal size, with a white label across the front. My grandmother's name was printed first. Eleanor Whitcomb Bennett. Under it was the address of the Linden Street house. In the upper corner I saw the return information from the Lynn County Recorder's office. My breath caught. 3 weeks earlier I had filed a routine public records request on the house. I told myself it was curiosity. That was not entirely true. At work, I had seen enough messy transfers to know when language did not sit right. My mother had been talking too casually about eventually selling Grandma's house, even though no one had ever shown me a finalized probate order. Then I noticed the property tax notices still included references that should have changed if everything had been handled properly. So I asked for copies. Quietly, professionally. No accusations, just documents. I stepped back onto the walkway and looked toward the house. My mother had already closed the door. Through the window I saw her carry my casserole toward the dining room like an offering. No one inside was watching the mailbox. No one inside knew that paper could remember what people tried to bury. I pulled the envelope free. My hands were cold, but they did not shake. Not then. I turned it over and saw the county seal stamped across the flap. It was not a Christmas card. It was not a notice anyone had meant for my mother to intercept. It was the first official answer to a question I had been too tired, too grieving, and too obedient to ask 2 years earlier. Behind me, the family laughed again. I stood under the porch light with the envelope pressed against my coat and looked through the window one last time. Ryan lifted his glass. Vanessa smiled from Grandma's chair. My mother placed my casserole on the table and said something that made everyone lean in. For the first time all day, I smiled too. Because my mother had just uninvited me from Christmas dinner in the very house she was about to lose control of. I did not open the envelope in my car. I drove 3 blocks away, first parked behind the closed pharmacy on West Avenue, and turned off the engine. The silence felt heavier there, away from the house, away from the windows, away from the warm yellow scene my family had built without me. Only then did I slide my finger under the county seal and pull out the papers with the careful hands of someone who understood that paper could be more dangerous than anger. The first page was a certified copy of the last recorded deed. The second was a property tax history. The third was a scanned document tied to my grandmother's estate file, one I had never seen before. My headlights were off, so I used the dome light, leaning close, while snow gathered quietly on the windshield. I read names, dates, parcel numbers, signatures, and legal descriptions. At first everything looked ordinary. Then I saw the line that made my stomach tighten. The Linden Street house had not been transferred to my mother. Not fully, not cleanly, not the way she had told everyone. I read it again, slower this time, because my work had trained me never to trust the first hit of adrenaline. There was a recorded deed from decades earlier listing Grandma Eleanor as sole owner after my grandfather died. There were tax records showing payments made under her name, then under estate of Eleanor Bennett, for 2 years after her passing. There was no final transfer deed to Margaret, no executor's deed, no court order confirming ownership. Nothing that matched my mother's certainty. But the strangest document was the estate memorandum. It was not the full will. It was not even a complete probate file. It was a county reference note, tied to an unclosed estate matter, and at the bottom was a flagged notation from the clerk's office: see attached occupancy and maintenance clause. Beneficiary interest, unresolved, pending documentation. Under that, in smaller text, was my name. Claire Marie Bennett. For a moment I forgot to breathe. I had spent 2 years letting my mother speak about Grandma's house as if she had inherited not just the property but the authority to decide who belonged inside it. I had watched her seat Ryan near the fireplace, welcome Vanessa into family photographs, and tell me I was being selfish for remembering pain out loud. All that time the house had been sitting in a legal gray place, waiting for someone to ask the right question. And I knew how to ask questions. That had been the one useful thing left from the wreckage of my marriage. Ryan used to mock my job when he was angry. "You just push papers," he would say, usually after I corrected something practical like an unpaid bill or a missed deadline. He hated that I noticed details. He hated that I remembered dates. He hated that when he lied, some part of me quietly began arranging the truth in chronological order. I did not become suspicious overnight. I became suspicious by surviving him. Ryan's affair started as far as I could prove in late February, 7 months before Grandma died. I was sleeping at her house most nights by then because she had begun wandering after midnight. She would turn on the stove, forget water running in the bathroom sink, or stand by the front door waiting for my grandfather. I kept a blanket on the living room couch, and my laptop on the coffee table, answering work emails between medication alarms. Ryan said he understood. Then he started staying late at the office. Then he started showering as soon as he came home. Then he put a passcode on his phone after 8 years of leaving it face up beside the bed. I knew before I knew. That is how betrayal works. Your body receives the evidence before your mind is ready to admit the verdict. Vanessa was in marketing at his company. She sent him cheerful little messages with too many exclamation points and no obvious crime inside them. "Good luck today. You've got this. Don't forget to eat." The kind of messages that make you feel foolish for being hurt. Then one night, while Grandma slept in the recliner and rain tapped against the windows, Ryan's tablet lit up on the kitchen table with a message preview. "I miss waking up next to you." I remember standing there in Grandma's kitchen holding a mug of tea gone cold, thinking how small the sentence looked compared to the damage it carried. 6 words. That was all it took for 8 years of marriage to tilt sideways. I did not scream. Grandma was sleeping 10 feet away. I took a photo of the screen with my phone because even then some practical part of me knew people like Ryan did not confess unless evidence left them no room to perform innocence. When I confronted him, he cried before I did. That should have taught me something. He said he had been lonely, that I had disappeared into caregiving, that Vanessa made him feel seen. He said he never meant to hurt me, which was a strange thing to say after making so many choices that required my hurt as a cost. Then he said the sentence I never forgot. "You stopped being my wife long before I stopped acting like your husband." I told my mother the next morning. I thought she would come over. I thought she would sit with me at Grandma's kitchen table and hate him on my behalf for at least one day. Instead, she was quiet for so long that I checked the phone to see if the call had dropped. Then she sighed and said, "Claire, men don't handle neglect well." Neglect. That was the word she chose for my exhaustion. I said I was caring for your mother. "And we're grateful," she replied in the careful voice she used when she wanted credit for kindness she was not actually giving, "but marriage still has needs." I should have hung up. I should have known then that my mother had already begun protecting the version of the story that required the least inconvenience from her, but I was raw, ashamed, and desperate to believe someone in my family would stand beside me, so I explained. I defended myself like a defendant in a trial no one had admitted was happening. Grandma died 5 weeks later. At the funeral, Ryan sat in the second row with my family because my mother said asking him not to come would look vindictive. Vanessa did not attend, but flowers arrived with her name on the card. White lilies. Grandma hated lilies. She said they smelled like someone trying to apologize after stealing money. I almost laughed when I read the card, not because it was funny but because grief sometimes reaches a place where absurdity is the only oxygen left. After the burial, everyone gathered at the Linden Street house. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, accepting hugs from people who had not changed one bedsheet, filled one prescription, or cleaned one bathroom after Grandma missed the toilet. My mother stood in the kitchen telling guests how hard the last year had been on all of us. I watched her place a hand over her heart, and I realized she was not lying exactly. She had suffered the idea of responsibility. That afternoon, she took Grandma's keys from the hook by the back door. "I'll handle the house," she told me. I asked about the will. She said Grandma had kept things simple. I asked whether there was probate. She said there would be forms, nothing I needed to worry about. I was too tired to push. My divorce petition had been filed that same week. I was sleeping badly, eating toast over the sink and waking up with my jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. So I let my mother handle it. That was the mistake she counted on. For the next 2 years, she controlled access to the house like it was a reward system. Travis could store old furniture in the garage. Aunt Linda could host a baby shower there. Ryan could stop by to pick up things he left, though he had taken everything of his during the divorce. But if I wanted to sit in the living room alone or collect Grandma's recipe box, my mother always had a reason it was not a good time. The first time I objected to Ryan being invited to Christmas, Margaret said, "He didn't divorce the whole family." I said, "No, Mom. He just betrayed your daughter." She looked at me like I had said something childish. People are more complicated than that. That was how she did it. She made basic loyalty sound unsophisticated. She made pain sound immature. She turned every boundary into proof that I lacked grace. And because she spoke softly, everyone treated her cruelty like wisdom. Vanessa understood my mother immediately. That was the worst part. She never pushed too hard in public. She brought candles, compliments, homemade fudge, and little stories about how Ryan was learning to forgive himself. She called my mother Margaret at first, then Mags by summer, then Mom in a Facebook caption by Thanksgiving. Each step was small enough for everyone to pretend not to notice, but deliberate enough for me to feel the blade. Ryan married her 14 months after our divorce was final. My mother attended. She told me 2 weeks before the wedding, not because she wanted my blessing but because she did not want me to hear it from someone else and make her look bad. She sat across from me in a coffee shop stirring a latte she barely drank, and said, "They're trying to build something healthy. I hope you can respect that." I asked, "Did you respect me when I was trying to survive what they did?" She looked tired then but not guilty. "Claire, you have always made everything so heavy." There it was. The family thesis. My grief was heavy. My facts were heavy. My presence at dinner was heavy. Vanessa was light because she asked nothing of them except permission to replace me. Ryan was comfortable because forgiving him cost them nothing. I was the only one whose pain required anyone to take a position, so they solved the problem by treating my pain as the problem. That Christmas Eve, the year before the text, I stopped by the Linden Street house to drop off wrapped gifts for my nieces. Through the window, I saw Vanessa placing ornaments on Grandma's tree. Not just any ornaments. The cinnamon dough stars Grandma and I had made when I was 9, the ones she stored in tissue paper and told me were too fragile for careless hands. Vanessa held one up and laughed. "These are so ugly they're cute." Nobody corrected her. I went home without knocking. After that, I started paying attention professionally. Not emotionally. Professionally was safer. When my mother mentioned a realtor friend taking a look at the house, I checked the public assessor page. When Travis joked that maybe the sale would help all of us move on, I searched the recorder's index during my lunch break. When a notice came to my apartment by mistake about delinquent stormwater fees tied to Linden Street, I paid it before late penalties attached, then saved the receipt. That was the habit my family underestimated. I saved things. Receipts, emails, texts, photos, dates, copies of checks for the roof repair, the invoice for replacing the furnace blower motor. The property tax installment I paid the winter after Grandma died because my mother called me crying, saying she was short until January. I did not save them because I planned revenge. I saved them because my job had taught me that memory becomes negotiable when documents are missing. Sitting behind the closed pharmacy on Christmas evening, I looked again at the county papers and understood that my mother's story had holes large enough for the truth to walk through. My phone rang. Ryan. I watched his name pulse on the screen. For a second I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I remembered the estate memorandum, the unresolved beneficiary note, my name typed in black ink under my grandmother's address. I answered without saying hello. He sounded relaxed, a little drunk and pleased with himself. "Claire, your mom said you seemed upset." I looked at the papers in my lap. "Did she?" "Come on. You knew tonight would be awkward. Vanessa's my wife now." "I know what she is." He sighed, performing patience. I had heard that sigh in marriage counseling in our kitchen in the courthouse hallway. "This is exactly why Margaret thought it was better if you didn't come. You still can't be civil." Outside, the windshield snow moved through the parking lot, lights like ash. I asked, "Why are you calling Ryan?" His voice shifted, softer, false concern wearing an old coat. "Because I don't want you making things harder on your mom. She's been through a lot with the house and everything." My fingers tightened around the memorandum. What house? There was a pause just long enough to matter. "Grandma Eleanor's," he said. "Your mom's trying to make practical decisions. It's time, Claire." "Time for what?" He exhaled. "To sell it. Move on. Stop keeping everyone trapped in the past." I closed my eyes. There it was. The thing under the thing. The reason Vanessa had been seated in Grandma's chair. The reason my mother needed me absent but still useful. They were not just replacing me at Christmas dinner, they were preparing to erase me from the house itself. Ryan kept talking careless now. Vanessa knows a broker who can get a great price. And honestly, if the family handles this right, it could help everybody. Everybody, I repeated. You know what I mean. I did. Ryan's contracting business had been struggling for months. I had heard it from Travis, who heard it from my mother, who pretended not to gossip but always delivered information with clean hands. Ryan needed money. Vanessa liked beautiful things. My mother wanted peace. And somehow, as usual, my loss had become the easiest funding source. I looked down at the county envelope, then at my own name on the page. No, I said quietly. I don't think I do. Before Ryan could answer, another call came in from an unknown local number. Lynn County area code. I let Ryan keep speaking for 3 more seconds, just long enough for my phone to capture his voice saying, "Your mom already agreed to the sale," before I ended the call and switched over. A man's voice came through, formal but not unkind. "Miss Bennett, this is Deputy Cole Harris, with the Sheriff's Office. I'm trying to verify service for papers related to the property on Linden Street." My whole body went still. I asked, "Are they for my mother?" "No, ma'am," he said. "Not only her. The order lists all current occupants and interested parties present at the property. We were instructed to attempt service this evening because of the reported gathering." I stared through the snowy windshield toward the direction of Grandma's house, where my family was eating the casserole I had been asked to deliver but not stay for. The deputy continued, "Will you be available to identify the property?" I folded the county papers carefully, slid them back into the envelope, and placed it on the passenger seat. "Yes," I said. "I'll be there." I drove back to Linden Street with the county envelope on the passenger seat, and Ryan's last sentence replaying in my head like a recording I had not meant to keep but now knew I needed. "Your mom already agreed to the sale." He had said it too easily, the way people speak when they believe the outcome is already settled, and the only remaining problem is managing whoever got left out of the room. The house looked even brighter when I returned. More cars had arrived. Someone had turned on the porch garland and tiny white lights blinked along the railing. Grandma used to decorate with red velvet bows. Through the front window I could see my family gathered in the dining room, now plates full, shoulders, relaxed faces, warm from wine and performance. My absence had not wounded the evening. It had cleaned it up for them. I parked across the street again, but this time I did not get out. Not yet. I sat with my phone in my hand and opened the recorder app. The call with Ryan had saved automatically the little waveform tucked under today's date and time. I listened only long enough to confirm the important part. His voice came through, slightly muffled but clear. "Your mom already agreed to the sale." That sentence changed the shape of the night. Until then, a small, foolish part of me had hoped my mother was only being cruel in the familiar way, favoring comfort, avoiding awkwardness, choosing Ryan and Vanessa because they came with easier smiles and fewer hard questions. But selling Grandma's house while keeping me out of Christmas dinner was not avoidance. It was strategy. They did not want me absent because I was dramatic. They wanted me absent because I might notice. A notification appeared on my phone. Vanessa had tagged my mother in a Facebook post. I should not have opened it, but pain has its own curiosity. The photo showed Vanessa sitting in Grandma's chair beside the Christmas tree, Ryan standing behind her with one hand on her shoulder. My mother was next to them, smiling so wide it looked practiced. The caption read, "So grateful to be welcomed by a real family this Christmas." A real family. I stared at those words until they stopped hurting and started clarifying. That was always Vanessa's gift. She never had to say, "I replaced you." She said grateful. She said healing. She said family. She wrapped theft in softness and let other people defend the wrapping. Under the post, Aunt Linda had commented, "Beautiful." Travis had left 3 heart emojis. My mother had written, "We are blessed to have you here." I took a screenshot. Then Ryan called again. This time I let it ring twice before answering. My voice was calm when I said, "What do you need?" He laughed under his breath. "You sound like you're at work." "I am handling something. Claire." His tone dropped into that old intimate register he used when he wanted me to remember I had once loved him. "Don't make tonight uglier than it has to be." I looked through the windshield at the house. Vanessa had risen from Grandma's chair and was leaning over the dining table laughing at something Travis said. "Who told you I was making anything ugly?" "Your mom is upset. My mother uninvited me from Christmas dinner and asked me to deliver food to the porch." He was quiet for half a second. "She was trying to keep the peace." "No, Ryan. She was trying to keep me outside." He sighed, and there it was again, that tired performance of being the reasonable one. "You keep seeing everything as an attack." Vanessa didn't ask for this tension. She wants things to be normal. Normal. That word had done so much damage in my family. Normal meant pretending no one had lied. Normal meant seating the wrong person in the sacred chair, and asking the right person to smile about it. Normal meant my mother got her holiday photos, Ryan got forgiveness, Vanessa got legitimacy, and I got blamed if my face revealed the cost. I asked, "Does Vanessa know about the sale?" Another pause. Ryan said, "Why are you asking like that?" "Because you brought it up." I said, "Your mom is making practical decisions." "Practical for whom?" His voice tightened. "For everyone. The house is sitting there. It needs repairs. Your mom doesn't need that burden. Travis could use his share. And honestly, Vanessa and I have connections that could make the sale smoother than some emotional family mess." There it was again. Smooth, clean, easy. Every word meant the same thing without me. I said, "You don't own that house." "Neither do you," he snapped. And for the first time that night, his mask slipped. "So, maybe stop acting like Grandma left you a throne." My fingers went still around the phone. He had said too much. Not legally maybe, not yet, but emotionally yes. He had revealed the contempt underneath the concern. He had always hated that Grandma loved me in a way he could not manipulate. He had hated the nights I chose her medicine schedule over his ego. He had hated any room where I mattered without his permission. I said, "Thank you, Ryan." "For what?" "For reminding me who I'm dealing with." I ended the call before he could answer. Then I saved the recording, backed it up to my email, and forwarded both files to myself with the subject line, "Linden Street Christmas Calls." It was not dramatic. It was not satisfying. It was what I knew how to do: preserve the record before anyone could rewrite it. The deputy had said he was 15 minutes away. That gave me enough time to stop shaking, which I had only started doing after the call ended. I turned the heater higher and rested my hands against the vents. My reflection looked pale in the dark windshield, older than 34, sharper than I remembered. I thought about Grandma Eleanor and how she used to say my mother loved peace only when peace meant no one challenged her. At the time, I thought that was harsh. Now it sounded like a title search. My mother called next. I almost smiled when her name appeared. Patterns have a kind of rhythm when you finally stop dancing to them. First, Ryan softened me. Then Ryan blamed me. Now, Margaret would arrive with the family language, the holy words: forgiveness, respect, tradition, gratitude. I answered. "Claire," she said, and she was already angry, not loud. Margaret Bennett did not do loud unless she had an audience that would reward it. "Why is Ryan telling me you're asking questions about the house?" "Because I asked questions about the house." This is exactly what I was afraid of. You cannot let one evening be peaceful. One evening, I looked at the glowing windows. "Mom, you told me not to come to Christmas dinner because my ex-husband's new wife would be uncomfortable." "She is his wife now. I was your daughter first." Silence moved between us, cold and complete. Then she said the line I knew was coming, but it still landed with force. "You lost your husband because you couldn't let things go. Don't lose your family the same way." There it was, the sentence from the pantry, polished and reused like a family heirloom. My mother believed repetition made cruelty true. She believed if she said something calmly enough, the room would arrange itself around her version. For years I had argued with that. I had explained, defended, pleaded, corrected. That night, with the county papers beside me and the sheriff on his way, I did none of those things. I said, "I'm not losing my family tonight, Mom." Her breath softened, as if she thought I was surrendering. Then I finished. "I'm finding out what I never had." She made a small sound of disgust. "You always do this. You turn everything into an accusation. Your grandmother wanted us together. She would be ashamed of what you're doing." That was when my body went completely calm. Not because I was no longer hurt, because she had touched the one place she had no right to touch. Grandma Eleanor had spent the last year of her life apologizing to me for the burden she thought she had become. She had held my hand after Ryan left and whispered, "Don't let them make you smaller just because they prefer you quiet." My mother had not been there for that. She had been at home too anxious to watch her own mother disappear. I said, "Do you have Grandma's original estate documents?" My mother's voice changed. Just slightly. "What?" "The will. Any memorandum, any probate notices, any correspondence from the attorney. Do you have them?" "Why are you talking like this?" "Because someone should have 2 years ago." She recovered quickly. "I have handled everything that needed handling." "That isn't an answer. I am not discussing legal nonsense on Christmas." "Apparently you were willing to discuss selling the house on Christmas." This time the silence was not cold, it was exposed. When she spoke again, her voice had sharpened. "You listen to me. That house has been a burden on this family. I am the one who has had to think about taxes, maintenance, insurance, and what is fair to everyone." I almost laughed. I had the receipts in a folder at home: the roof repair I paid, the furnace invoice, the stormwater fee, the tax installment. My mother was not just taking credit for emotional labor she had avoided, she was taking credit for checks I had written. I said, "Fairness requires facts." "No," she snapped. "Fairness requires sacrifice, something you have never understood." That one hurt, but not the way she intended. It hurt because I suddenly saw how long I had been sacrificing to people who only called it sacrifice when they were the ones collecting the benefit. Caregiving was duty when I did it. Money was family when I sent it. Silence was maturity when I swallowed it. But the moment I asked for truth, I was selfish. I watched headlights turn onto Linden Street behind me. A marked sheriff's vehicle slowed near the curb. I said, "I have to go, Mom. You will not come into this house and ruin Christmas." I looked at the deputy stepping out into the snow papers tucked under one arm. "I know," I said. "That's why I'm not coming as your guest." I ended the call and got out of the car. The cold hit my face cleanly, almost kindly. Deputy Cole Harris was tall, broad-shouldered, and probably in his late 40s, with the steady expression of a man who had delivered enough bad news to stop confusing volume with seriousness. He checked my name, then the address, then glanced toward the house. "Miss Bennett." "Yes. You understand I'm here for civil service only. I'm not here to settle a family dispute." "I understand." His eyes moved briefly to my face, then to the bright windows behind me. Sometimes those two things arrive at the same door. I did not know what to say to that, so I said nothing. He reviewed the packet with me in the plain language officers use when they are trying not to give legal advice. Notice of pending probate claim, temporary restraining order, preventing sale, transfer, or encumbrance of the Linden Street property. Demand for production of estate documents. Service to Margaret Bennett, and any parties asserting occupancy interest or involvement in attempted transfer. The estate attorney had filed after a title examiner flagged inconsistent records and possible unauthorized sale preparation. A title examiner. For a strange second I felt less alone. Somewhere, someone like me had seen the same wrongness in the paper trail and refused to look away. Deputy Harris asked, "Are the listed parties inside?" I looked through the window. My mother was standing now, phone still in her hand, staring out toward the porch. Ryan had moved beside her. Vanessa stood behind them in Grandma's chair's shadow, one hand pressed to her chest, like she was already rehearsing innocence. "Yes," I said, "they're inside." We crossed the street together. I walked slightly behind him, not because I was afraid, but because this was not a scene I needed to lead. For once, I did not have to knock on a door and ask my family to hear me. The law was going to knock. Paper was going to speak in a room where my voice had been treated as noise. My boots touched the first porch step, then the second. The wood creaked under the same sound I remembered from childhood. I thought of Grandma sitting in her chair watching snow fall beyond the glass. I thought of my mother saying, "It's just a chair." I thought of Vanessa's caption, "A real family." Deputy Harris rang the bell. Inside, the laughter died unevenly, first one voice, then another. Footsteps approached. The porch light hummed above us. My mother opened the door with a smile already prepared for battle, but it faltered when she saw the uniform, the packet, and me standing behind him in the cold. "Claire," she said, her voice low with warning, "I told you not tonight." I met her eyes. "I know," I said. "That's why I didn't come as your guest." Deputy Harris stepped forward and lifted the papers. "Margaret Bennett," he asked. "I have documents to serve regarding this property." For a few seconds, nobody inside the house moved. My mother stood in the doorway with one hand still gripping the brass knob, her Christmas smile hanging on her face like a decoration that had come loose. Behind her, the dining room went quiet in pieces. A fork touched a plate. Someone whispered my name. Ryan stepped forward just enough to be seen, and Vanessa appeared behind his shoulder with one hand pressed to her chest, already looking wounded for an audience that had not yet chosen sides. Deputy Harris did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Margaret Bennett." My mother blinked once, then pulled herself upright. "Yes, I'm Margaret. What is this about?" "These are civil papers regarding the property located at this address." He held out the packet. "You have been served." She stared at the papers as if refusing to touch them might make them less real. Then she laughed softly, a sound meant for the people behind her, more than for the deputy. "This is a family home." Deputy Harris's face did not change. "Ma'am, I'm only here to serve the documents." Ryan stepped closer, his jaw tight. "Claire, what did you do?" That was the first thing he said. Not "what is happening?" Not "are you okay?" Not "why is there a sheriff at the door on Christmas?" Just an accusation, because people like Ryan always believe consequences are something someone else does to them. I looked at him, then at my mother. "I asked for records." Vanessa gave a small gasp, soft enough to sound feminine, and loud enough to travel. "On Christmas, Claire, why would you do this to your mother?" I almost admired the speed of it. She had not even read the papers, but she already knew the role she wanted me to play. Cruel daughter, bitter ex-wife, woman who ruined Christmas because she could not stand seeing everyone else happy. The costume had been tailored for me years ago. She expected me to step into it. I did not. My mother finally took the packet. Her fingers shook when she saw the first page. She scanned the heading, then the body, then flipped to the next page too quickly to be reading all of it. "Temporary restraining order," she said, and her voice cracked on the last word. That was when the room changed. People who had been watching me began watching her. Aunt Linda stood from the table. Travis wiped his mouth with a napkin and came closer. Ryan reached for the papers, but my mother pulled them away from him instinctively, which told me more than any confession could have. Deputy Harris said, "The order restricts sale, transfer, lien placement, or encumbrance of the property, pending review of the estate claim." Ryan's face drained just slightly. Vanessa noticed. I saw her notice. My mother turned on me then because anger was easier than fear. "You filed something against me." "No," I said. "The estate attorney filed after the title record was flagged." "The estate attorney?" Travis repeated. "What estate attorney?" That was the first honest question anyone in my family had asked that night. My mother ignored him. "Claire has been digging through paperwork because she can't let anything rest." "No," I said, still standing in the cold behind the deputy. "I requested public records because you kept talking about selling a house you never proved you owned." Aunt Linda looked at Margaret. "You said probate was finished." "It is," my mother snapped. Deputy Harris glanced down at the papers. "The attached filing states the estate remains unresolved as to beneficiary interest." The sentence landed hard because it was not emotional. It did not care who had cooked dinner, who had cried, who had remarried, who had posted captions about real family. It was plain language. And plain language has a way of humiliating beautiful lies. Ryan took the packet from my mother, then less gently than a son-in-law should take anything from a woman he claimed to respect. His eyes moved fast over the pages. Vanessa leaned toward him, whispering, "What does that mean?" "It means nothing yet," he said. But his voice was wrong. My mother turned to Deputy Harris. "Can we discuss this inside? It's freezing." He looked at me, then back to her. "Service is complete. What you discuss now is up to you." Then he did something I did not expect. He stepped aside, not leaving but making space. The doorway widened between my mother and me. Warm air spilled out around the smell of ham pine candles and the casserole I had delivered like a fool with good manners. Margaret looked at me with hatred tucked behind panic. "Are you satisfied?" I stepped into the house. Not far. Just over the threshold. The living room looked exactly as it had through the window, except uglier up close. Plates sat half-finished. Wine glasses sweated on coasters. Gifts were stacked beneath the tree. Grandma's chair stood near the fireplace, with Vanessa's cream cardigan draped over one arm, as if the chair had already accepted her. I looked at the cardigan first. Then I looked at Vanessa. "Move your sweater." Her eyebrows lifted. "Excuse me." "That was my grandmother's chair," I said. "Move your sweater." The room went silent again, but this silence was different. This one had edges. "Ryan," said Claire, "don't start." I did not look at him. I kept my eyes on Vanessa. After a moment with everyone watching, she walked over and lifted the cardigan from the chair. Her mouth trembled, but her eyes were sharp. She understood that a woman can lose ground over something as small as fabric if the room finally realizes she had no right to place it there. My mother clutched the papers to her chest. "This is ridiculous. Your grandmother would be heartbroken." I turned to her. "Don't use Grandma to defend a sale she may have legally prevented." My brother Travis frowned. "What does that mean?" I had not wanted an audience once. I had wanted a mother. I had wanted one person to sit across from me after Ryan's affair and say, "I know you didn't deserve this." I had wanted my family to stop treating my pain like spilled wine on a tablecloth they had just cleaned. But standing there with snow melting on my boots and legal papers in my mother's hand, I understood something cold and useful. They were not going to believe me because I hurt. They might believe paper. So, I opened the folder I had brought from my car. Grandma's property was never fully transferred. The tax records still list the estate. The county index shows no executor's deed to Mom. And there's a memorandum referencing an unresolved occupancy and maintenance clause with my name attached. My mother's face went white. Aunt Linda looked at her. "Margaret." My mother shook her head. "She's twisting things. She works with documents all day. She knows how to make simple things sound suspicious." "That would work," I said, "if I had written them." I placed copies on the entry table: the deed, the tax history, the flagged memorandum, receipts from the roof repair, furnace service, insurance payments, stormwater fees, the tax installment from the winter my mother told me she was short. Each page had a date. Each date had an amount. Each amount had a payer. Me. Travis picked up the tax receipt first. "You paid this?" "Yes." He looked at my mother. "You told us you handled the taxes." My mother's mouth tightened. "I handled the situation. Claire helped because family helps family." That sentence almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because she had finally said the quiet part in public. When I paid, it was family. When I asked, it was betrayal. Ryan flipped through the papers with increasing irritation. "Receipts don't make you owner of the house." "No," I said, "but they support the clause." Vanessa folded her arms. "What clause?" I turned one page and pointed to the notation. The estate filing references a provision that gave beneficiary interest to the person who maintained and occupied or financially preserved the property during Grandma's final illness and after her death pending documentation. Aunt Linda whispered, "Eleanor wrote that." "I haven't seen the full original yet," I said. "That's why the order demands production of the estate documents Mom kept." My mother exploded then. Not loudly, not completely, but enough for the mask to crack. "Because you were never supposed to make this ugly." There it was. Not false. Not wrong. Ugly. The word told the story better than any document could. My mother did not say I was mistaken. She did not say the clause was fake. She did not say Grandma had never written it. She said I was making it ugly because in Margaret Bennett's world the sin was never what happened. The sin was forcing people to look at it under good lighting. Ryan seized on the opening. "This is still family property, Claire. You can't just block everyone because you're mad Vanessa is here." I looked at him. "You were planning to use the sale to help your business." His expression hardened. "That's none of your business. It became my business when you tried to help sell a house you didn't own." Vanessa turned to him. "Ryan." He did not answer her. That was answer enough. I took out my phone. "You called me less than an hour ago and said Mom already agreed to the sale. You also said Vanessa had broker connections that could make it smoother." Ryan's eyes jumped to the phone. My mother said, "You recorded him." I was part of the call. Iowa is a one-party consent state. That was not a dramatic line. It was a closing coordinator line. It was the kind of line I had said to nervous buyers, angry sellers, and once to a man who tried to deny approving an amendment he had clearly approved by email. But in my mother's living room it had more force than shouting. I pressed play. Ryan's voice filled the room, slightly tinny but clear. Your mom already agreed to the sale. Then another piece. Vanessa and I have connections that could make the sale smoother than some emotional family mess. Then his anger. So maybe stop acting like Grandma left you a throne. Nobody spoke after I stopped the recording. Vanessa stared at Ryan as if she had just discovered the stage beneath her feet was not stable. My mother looked at the floor. Travis looked sick. Aunt Linda sat down heavily on the arm of the sofa. Deputy Harris remained near the doorway, neutral but present, a human reminder that this was no longer just a family argument someone could hush before dessert. Ryan tried to recover first. That recording is taken out of context. I said, the context is you were discussing the sale of my grandmother's house at a Christmas dinner I was told not to attend. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Vanessa's voice sharpened. You told me this was already handled. Ryan turned on her. Not now. My mother flinched at their exchange, and I saw the whole ugly machinery of the night. Vanessa had believed Ryan and Margaret had secured the house. Ryan had believed Margaret could control me. Margaret had believed shame would keep me obedient. Every one of them had built a plan on the old version of me, the one who explained too much and apologized before asking for what was true. That woman was not dead. But she no longer opened the door for them. My mother stepped toward me with the papers crushed in her hand. Claire, listen to me. We can fix this privately. I looked around the room. Privately is where you broke it. Her eyes filled with tears. They looked real. That was the hardest part. My mother's tears were always real. She truly did feel wounded when people resisted her. She truly did believe discomfort was a form of harm when it happened to her. But real tears do not make someone innocent. Sometimes they only prove the person understands they are losing control. I am your mother, she said. I nodded once. I know. I did what I thought was best. No, I said. You did what was easiest for you to defend. Her face crumpled, and for one dangerous second I almost moved toward her. Old training is powerful. A daughter sees her mother cry, and something ancient inside her reaches for bandages, but then I saw Grandma's chair behind her. I saw Vanessa's empty wineglass beside it. I saw Ryan wearing the sweater I had bought him, standing in the room where my grandmother had told me not to shrink. So, I stayed still. My mother whispered, You humiliated me in front of everyone. I said, No, Mom. You uninvited your daughter from Christmas because my ex-husband's wife was easier to love. The papers only made everyone read the truth out loud. The room absorbed that sentence slowly. Ryan looked away first. Vanessa gathered her cardigan from the back of a dining chair and reached for her purse. I'm not staying for this, she said, but her voice had lost its softness. No one stopped her. Not even my mother. She walked past me without looking at my face, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and panic. Ryan followed her halfway, then turned back. Claire, you have no idea what kind of damage you're doing. I looked at him one last time and felt almost nothing. That surprised me. For years I thought indifference would feel like victory. It did not. It felt like finally setting down a suitcase I had forgotten I was carrying. You did the damage, I said. I kept the records. He left after that. The rest of the night did not end cleanly. Real endings rarely do. Travis demanded answers from my mother. Aunt Linda cried quietly in the kitchen. My cousins pretended to clean plates while listening to every word. Deputy Harris confirmed again that the served parties needed to comply with the order and consult legal counsel. Then he left his tire tracks cutting through the snow in front of the house. My mother sat at the dining table with the papers spread before her, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. I did not enjoy it. That is something people misunderstand about revenge. The satisfying part was not watching her suffer. The satisfying part was watching the truth become too solid for her to rearrange. She said without looking up, What do you want? I looked around the room. The garland, the plates, the tree, the chair, the walls I had scrubbed after Grandma's last bad week. The staircase where I had once sat listening to my parents fight. The kitchen where Ryan's message had ended my marriage before I had words for it. The house held all of it, the tenderness and the rot. I want the original documents turned over to the estate attorney, I said. I want no sale, no broker, no loan, no discussion of transfer until the court resolves the claim. I want Ryan and Vanessa kept out of anything involving this property. And I want you to stop using the word family when you mean obedience. She closed her eyes. I continued. Until this is resolved, no one enters this house without legal permission. Not Ryan, not Vanessa, not Travis storing furniture, not you hosting dinners to make yourself look like nothing happened. Her head lifted. You would keep me out of my mother's house. I took a breath. You kept me out of Christmas while trying to sell it. She had no answer for that. Over the next 6 weeks, the story unraveled in less dramatic but more permanent ways. The estate attorney obtained the original documents from a safe deposit box my mother had failed to disclose. Grandma Eleanor had signed an addendum 11 months before she died, witnessed by her neighbor and a notary from her credit union. It said the Linden Street property was to pass to me if I could document that I had served as primary caregiver and financially preserved the home through the estate period. My mother had known about the addendum. She had not liked it. That was the whole motive, stripped of its Christmas dress. She believed Grandma had rewarded me too much. She believed Travis deserved a share, she deserved control, and Ryan's financial crisis created a convenient reason to sell before anyone looked closely. She told herself it was fairness. She told others it was practicality. But underneath all of it was resentment that Grandma had seen what she refused to see. I had stayed. The court process took time, but the temporary order held. The attempted sale died quietly. Ryan's broker connection disappeared. Vanessa deleted the Christmas post first, then her whole album from that night. Ryan later sent me one long email accusing me of poisoning his relationship with my family. I did not answer. There are some messages that only want to prove the door still opens. It did not. My mother called 3 times in January, twice in February, and once on Grandma's birthday. I let each call go to voicemail. The first message was angry, the second was tearful. The third was practical, asking whether she could retrieve a box of ornaments. The fourth was almost soft. I miss you, she said. I don't know how we got here. I stood in my apartment listening to that line and felt the old pull again. I wanted to explain the road to her, every mile of it. I wanted to tell her we got there when she called my caregiving neglect, when she welcomed Vanessa into Grandma's chair, when she asked for my casserole, but not my presence, when she used family as a leash, and forgiveness as a muzzle. Instead, I deleted the voicemail. Not because I hated her. Because I had finally stopped auditioning for a mother she did not know how to be. By spring, the court confirmed my interest in the property. There were still administrative steps, signatures, filings, and fees, because life is not a movie, and legal truth moves at the speed of stapled paper, but the house was protected. Grandma's addendum stood. My records mattered. Every check I had written in silence became a brick in the wall that kept my mother from selling the place out from under me. The first time I walked into the Linden Street house alone, after the order settled, it smelled stale, like pine cleaner and closed curtains. I opened the windows even though the air was cold. I took Vanessa's wine stain out of the side table with baking soda and patience. I moved Grandma's chair back near the front window where she had liked it, not beside the fireplace where people performed belonging. Then I sat in it. For a long time I did nothing. I listened to the old house shift around me, pipes ticking, floorboards settling, a car passing outside. The maple tree scratching gently against the porch roof. I thought sitting there would make me cry, but what came instead was a quiet so deep it felt almost like forgiveness, though not for my mother, not for Ryan, not for Vanessa. For myself. I forgave the woman who had delivered the casserole. I forgave the woman who had stood outside the window trying not to shake. I forgave the woman who had begged people with her eyes to choose her, and then felt ashamed when they did not. She had not been weak. She had been trained to believe love required proof, endurance, usefulness, and silence. Grandma had known better. That summer, I repaired the porch railing and planted lavender along the walkway. I did not host a big family gathering. I did not send a dramatic announcement. I invited 2 friends from work, my neighbor and Grandma's old friend Mrs. Alvarez, who brought lemon cookies and told me Eleanor would have been proud but also would have complained about the dust on the ceiling fan. We ate in the dining room with the windows open. No one sat at the kids' table. No one was asked to make peace with someone who had harmed them. No one used the word family like a weapon. It was just dinner. Warm, imperfect, honest. For the first time in years, the house felt less like a courtroom for old pain, and more like a place where something decent could begin again. My mother and I are not reconciled. People often want that part softened. They want the ending where she knocks on the door, admits everything, and I fall into her arms because blood is supposed to be stronger than memory. But blood does not erase what people choose. A mother can love you in the limited way she understands and still be unsafe with the keys to your life. I did not need to punish her forever. I only needed to stop giving her access to the parts of me she kept selling for peace. Ryan and Vanessa divorced less than a year later. I heard it from Travis, who left a message I also did not return. Apparently, financial pressure did what morality had not. I felt no joy. Vanessa had not stolen a prize when she married Ryan. She had inherited a man who mistook being adored for being loved and being challenged for being attacked. That was punishment enough. As for Christmas, I do not hate it now. I thought I would. I thought every December would bring back the porch, the text, the smell of casserole cooling in my car. But healing is strange. It does not erase the scene. It changes where you stand in it. The next Christmas, I stayed home at Linden Street. I made Grandma's casserole in the blue ceramic dish and ate it at the dining table with two friends who knew the whole story and did not ask me to make it prettier. Snow fell outside. The porch light glowed. My phone stayed silent most of the day, and for once, silence did not feel like abandonment. It felt like peace. Family is not the table where they push you out and still expect you to bring food. It is not a photograph where your replacement smiles from your grandmother's chair while everyone calls it healing. It is not forgiveness demanded by people who have not told the truth yet. Family is where reality is allowed to enter the room. Sometimes, the person who ruins Christmas is not the one who arrives with papers. Sometimes it is the one who built the whole holiday on a lie and trusted your silence to keep it standing. My mother thought uninviting me would protect her perfect dinner. She never understood that the door she closed on me was the same door the truth would use to come in.